What's up, Porch Nation? Welcome back to Porch Nation headquarters here in Worcester, Massachusetts, one of the top 50 states in the U.S. As of the time of this recording, let me be clear, polls are still open. It was week 5 here in the Greatest League, and it was in Division week 2 of 6 for the 2024 season. We saw some great matchups, and we'll check back in on our win-loss zeros watch. We saw some streaks extended and some big ones ended. Week 5, 8 games, let's get into it! Okay, week 5, aka in Division Game 2. Let's start with the big one and hop that commuter rail out to the East Division. You know that commuter rail that runs to Canterbury, New Hampshire, right? Well, that's as far east as this line runs, and we check in on our zero watch as well, Jeff versus Josh Marshall. Jeff came into this one as our lone undefeated team. Yes, Jeff's win streak coming into this game is 5 games, going all the way back to week 14 of the regular season last year. And guess who he beat that week, causing turmoil in our playoff seeding? You guessed it, Josh Marshall. Well, after starting 1-2 and being the lowest scoring team in the league through the early goes, Josh Marshall takes down our one remaining undefeated team, ending the win streak that started against him and improving to 3-2. Jeff sees his streak ended and his lead in the division reduced to just 1 game now. The other East Division matchup was one of the oldest rivalries in our league, with Pete versus Dylan. So this blew my mind. Both managers were with us in that crazy 20-team first season all the way back in 2009, right? But they didn't play for the first time until the 3rd season in 2011. That's crazy to me. Not only did they play for the first time that year, but they played 3 times that year, twice in the regular season and once in the Super Bowl. Dylan would win all 3 of those occasions, including his first ever Super Bowl victory. But Pete would go on to get his revenge in week 1 of the following season, marking a trend and marking his first victory in their series. The rivalry would return to the Super Bowl stage again in 2014, where Dylan would win his 3rd championship, including his 2nd in a row, and take his series lead to 8-2 in his favor. Once again, like I said, a trend, Pete would get revenge in week 1 the following year after his Super Bowl loss, and would actually sweep their regular season series that following year, raising his total to 4 wins to Dylan's 8. These 2 teams have faced off in week 1 for most of our season so far, and having been in the same division for most of that time as well, they face each other twice a season and have now faced each other a whopping 29 times. Well, meeting number 30 was more familiar fare, much to Pete's dismay, and Dylan makes this win number 21 in their series. The worst part about all of that is I had to research it all, and then I had to double check my work, and I'm still only mostly sure it's correct. Let's mount up and race through the plains and deserts to the Golden Hills of California in the West Division. Alex and I came into this one with mirrored records, with me at 1-3 and Al at 3-1. Well, I'd love to say surprise here, but I knew it was going to be more of the same sad, shriveled, and slumped performance my team has squirted out so far, when I made the bold choice to go with Andy Dalton over the thus far floundering Kirk Cousins, only to see Cousins put up over 50 points on Thursday night. Ho-hum. Alex improves to the best in the West record of 4-1. The other West matchup offered Ethan versus Ross 2024 Part 1. Unfortunately for Ethan, his team seems to have gotten hit by the same inconsistency bug as mine, and maybe a misfire on an IDP slot as well. Luckily, Levante David's 9.7 bench points would not have made the difference in this game, although it would have given us one of my favorite types of conclusions, a fractional point victory. Ross improves to 3-2, and Ethan joins me in the West Division basement. Now let's cruise on down the coast and grab an exotic fruity drink complete with Umbrella in the South Division. Let's start with Adam versus Skinner, aka the second and the fourth highest scores of the week. That's right, Adam put up this week's second highest score, with Jamar Chase providing over 32. Skinner's fourth highest score would obviously not be enough here, and he keeps it lean, wins-wise anyway, at 1-4. Hey, don't worry about it, Skinsy. 7 out of the 16 teams are now 3-2, so dare to be different or some junk. Then, on to one of our marquee matchups of the week, Andy versus Josh Steinberg, Part 1. I've actually been teasing this head-to-head for a few weeks now, hoping for similar records and a close score. Well, we got one of those two this week, as both teams came in at 3-1 after Steiny's first loss of the season last week. But, to Andy's dismay, our highest scoring team so far this season rebounded in a big way after their first loss, and Josh takes their first of two head-to-heads in decisive fashion. Alright, ready the sled dogs, and don't forget your skates unless you're a total hosiery. Let's hit up the North Division. D came into this one searching for win number 1, and Joe sits on the 500 bubble. Well, while this one has an effect on the division standings for Joe, D's squad once again comes up short, and despite only posting 2 sub-100 scores so far this season, this one is lost 5 in a row for D. Then onto our other North matchup between Steven Berg and our Game of the Week. These two managers came into this game at 2-2 and looking to see who can come out on top in that North Division. Well, it was projected to be a very close game, and we got almost exactly that margin of difference in the score. Steve's able to pull off the early season head-to-head victory against Berg, and we'll see them match up again later on in the season. Alright folks, that was week 5 and in Division Game 2. We saw a few shakeups in the standings and some separation early out west. It gets late early out there, or some hokum like that. As I scanned the standings, one thing caught my eye immediately. To this point, Dylan has scored 601.77 points, and has had 601.85 points scored against him. Steiny's is the first team to crack 700 points. The next highest score is right in his South Division backyard, a familiar foe if you will, Adam, with 644. And continuing the trend so far this season, Josh is the only squad yet to face 500 total points. Speaking of Josh's, Mr. Marshall now sits at 3-2 on a 2-game win streak, despite having the second lowest total score so far. Our longest win streak is 4 games. After losing week 1, Alex has been on a tear, winning the next 4. Also, the second longest win streak is right in his West Division backyard in Ross's team. Ross lost the first 2 games and is now on a 3-game winning streak. And on the other end of the spectrum, the Elliott kids have the 2 longest losing streaks. We've lost a combined 9 games in a row. High five, sis, we did it! On to week 7, we have some thrilling matchups as the West heads north for game 2 of that series, and some real stinkers in the East versus South Part 2. I might not even cover those games. P.U. So until then, keep thriving, Porch Nation! Bloop. Then on to our other North Division matchup, Steve. Then on to our other North Division matchup, and our game of the week, Steve versus Bird.